I'm going to show you how to get this lovely little baby into one of my Christmas swings. So the editing process and how I go about it. So let's open them in Photoshop. I use Photoshop 5. I'm a bit of a dinosaur, a bit of a creature of habit. So here we go. So first of all, what we can see is the swing is got quite a light background. It's quite bright. It was shot on a white that I didn't like, so it's a sort of off-white, and we can see that the light is coming from this direction here because the shadow is there. So always look at the direction at which the prop was shot and make sure that the baby shot is shot in the same lighting, otherwise it will look very odd. So here I have a beautiful picture. It's not one of mine actually, it's one of my lovely clients, and I will credit her under this video. So her baby is much warmer. The whole picture, all the tones are much warmer than the swing over here. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments. You can see that the underneath layer, it's a little bit darker than what I have here on the swing, although when you look closer up, let me just bring my tools closer here. When you look closer up, this is light, but this bit here probably matches the tone. Well, actually, it really depends on the picture. So sometimes I cut the baby out first, sometimes I don't, but because I'm going to be using this baby for several of my mock-ups, I'm going to prep it before I pop it in the swing a little bit. So I'm going to duplicate the layer on the right hand side. I just want to show you over here. So I've duplicated the layer. I'm going to delete the background layer, and that way I can actually edit the layer because it was locked otherwise. So I'm going to multiply it again. So now I have two layers, both of them unlocked, and that layer underneath I'm going to switch off. And now I'm simply going to use the eraser tool. I'm going to go for a semi-hard brush, slightly bigger, and really the key here is for me is to get rid of this background. Actually, let me just go bigger because it's going to take ages otherwise. So I'm getting rid of most of the background because we're not going to need that obviously, but we are going to have to be I am going to have to be a little bit more precise around the head area. So I'm going to go for a harder brush, and then I'm going to zoom in here, and this is what I'll do. There we go. So really, when you think about if you photograph this baby on a swing in real life, it's a studio shot swing, so actually the baby probably would have been sharp all the way through. Now what I'm doing here is trying to put a baby that obviously has some depth of field. It hasn't been shot on, you know, f8 or something, or further up. I'm trying to put this baby into a swing which is quite sharp. So this edge, the edge of the back, can't be, can't be too soft, but it can't be too hard either because that can look odd. So this is something that I might have to refine, but I think that's probably a little bit too soft, so let's go a little bit harder. The bottom line is what you're looking for is you're looking for the baby to look realistic placed in the swing. And I can do this for you, or there's many other photographers that can offer this editing service. It can be time consuming depending on the baby and what the original image looks like and how much detail you have in the shot. Okay, so stuff like this, it's a little bit more difficult because obviously there's quite a lot going on there. Okay, I'm back. The delivery man rang the bell. Don't you just love it when you're recording something everybody has to come at once. Anyway, so when you have detail like this, it's up to you really how, you know, how much time you put into this, really, because it depends on the picture. If you are editing this image for somebody which is going to use it on social media or print it to, you know, a 10 by 8, there's probably no need for you to go all around and be that exacting around here. You can also use in Photoshop 2020, there's a new feature called you can actually select the whole object, and you know, there's a possibility that this might be something that will help you cut out the more intricate parts. But personally, when I edit images, I always think, what will they be used for? If they're for my client and they are being used for potentially blowing up and going big on the wall, then obviously the attention to detail is important, because you'll be able to see that detail close up. In reality though, when it comes to, you know, how big this baby is going to be on this swing, you know, the headband is going to be teeny weeny, and you would really need to have this picture blown up to, like, I don't know, absolutely massive basically, to even see the detail of the headband. Right, so I'm almost there before I drop the little bubba into the swing. So I'm just adjusting my brush as I go along. This is good hair for a composite. You get babies which have got very curly hair or very wispy hair, and obviously then we're talking about extracting hair, and for that there's various things like hair brushes that are available that you can buy. I don't offer them, but there are some available. Okay, so there we go. So this is now almost good to go. I'm just going to get rid of her hair, and what you've got to think is this baby's going to be going on the swing. I'm going to be sort of rotating it a little bit, so the rest of the fur I'll get rid of when the baby's on the swing. I'm going to save this for myself because I want the baby on the transparent background. And you might be wondering why I actually duplicated this layer and kept the one underneath. The reason why is because had I gone wrong somewhere, I could have always brought some detail back. Right, so I'm going to just grab this top layer where I've deleted the background, and I'm going to plonk that baby onto here. Okay, right, so free transform tool, look on the left, and now we are going to make the baby a little bit smaller to fit the swing. I apologize for the dogs barking in the background. They've just come back from their walk. I was hoping to finish this before they're back, but that wasn't to be. So another break in the recording. Bear with me one moment. Okay, so now we have the baby just sitting there, correctly sized, but obviously not quite the right shade. There are some other bits here, so I'm going to actually shut this file down behind, so we've just got the swing open now. Okay, so you can see here we've got a little bit of background that I hadn't deleted going on. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use the eraser to just get rid of all these bits because we won't need them. Okay, so literally now what we have is we need to now slightly reduce the opacity of that little bubba and just move it around a little bit more to make sure that we're happy from a size perspective. So you see that little foot before was sitting there. There's no way that would have happened in real life. So I'm going to raise her up a little bit higher, probably make her a tiny bit smaller. Okay, here we go, that's about the right size. Okay, so I'm going to increase the opacity now. And I'm going to now apply a layer mask. So look to the bottom right of the screen, this little icon. I'm going to press the Alt key and add a black layer mask. So what that's done, that's now covered the baby. And I can use a white paintbrush. So if you look to the left to the tools, I'm going to select a paintbrush. White is already selected. Slightly reduce the size. And now I'm going to paint in the parts of the baby that I actually want to see. So I'm going to reveal what's under this mask, but I'm only going to reveal the bits that I want. So okay, so I'm slowly painting in. I shouldn't worry about the top bit because I had already deleted the background, so that should be all good. Okay, so now I'm just going to make sure the body parts are all painted in. Now I'm going to switch to a black brush, so look to the left, switch. I'm going to reduce the opacity to half. I'm just going to get rid of this bit here, I painted in too much. I'm going to switch to white again, so I'm painting in this baby, and I'm going to leave the opacity at about 35. So if you look top left there, I'm circling it 35. Okay, so this obviously doesn't apply the same to every one, but what I'm really doing is just painting in some of that fluff underneath, so I get some of that texture come through, so it looks like it's part of the same fluff as the swing. Now we've got a thing going on here where I'm circling, so we're going to sort that out in a second. Okay, so that's a little bit too dark, so I switch to black. If you've made a mistake, you just switch between the white and the black brush, and you can also toggle on and off, so you can see what's going on there. So I want that texture to come through, but I don't want it to be as dark. The thing is, if I get rid of this fluff more because it's making this area darker, I will also be getting rid of the texture. So I like to probably use about 50% opacity and then work on the picture as a whole, just so it all fits. Okay, so let's go to the back here. So you can't do anything about the feet being out of focus. We can start sharpening, but that's not really going to look very good. So there's a sharp line here where I've deleted some of the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of this sharp line. I'm going to switch back to white, increase the opacity, no, sorry, decrease the opacity a little bit. And the key is, what you've got to remember is, if a baby was really lying there, no, this doesn't work. If the baby was really lying there, what would happen is there would be a shadow. There would be a shadow because obviously if the light's coming from the right, behind the bottom, there would be a darker area here. So we need to make sure that gets left dark. I think what's annoying me is this sharp line, so I keep going backwards and forwards, you can see with the mask. Okay, again, something I might have to fix a little bit later. So let's do a toggle on and off. Okay, that looks okay. Right, so there we are. So I'm actually going to now flatten the image, and now I'm going to work on this as a whole. Now, what I need to do, I can clearly see it, is make the contrast of the baby similar to the contrast of the swing. Sometimes you can take down the contrast of the background to match the baby, but in this case I don't think that's going to really work. So a couple of things. I'm going to grab one of my actions on the right, top right. There's lots of different actions that I use. If you want to know which ones they are, let me know. I think this one is from Paint the Moon. And what you can do this manually if you don't have the action, and it just means that you are painting on sort of peachy glow. So there we go. So I'm going to lighten all of this and just lighten this area underneath the baby, maybe a little bit on the forehead. So what that's done is just blended before and after. It's just started the sort of blending process of the baby looking more like the background. I'm going to flatten the layer. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm working in a destructive way, but to be honest with you, I flatten and go along, always have done. 17 years I've been doing this and I've never ever had a complaint. So I'm going, apologies for my dog barking in the background, growling, maybe he's complaining. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so I've just rounded off the bottom a little bit here, and I'm going to just reduce this clone tool now to About 35%. I've got the softest brush, and I'm just going to, there we go, just reduce it a little bit more. Really, you want a sort of slightly graduated effect. So you're just sampling there. Okay, let's have a look. Before and after, before and after. Okay, that looks better. You can see there's a little shadow under the bum. I think what I need to do is just refine that a little bit. So I'm going to go to darken mode. And what it does, it will only clone onto the lighter areas and darken them with wherever you've cloned from. So you see what's happening here. Right, before, after, before, after. Okay, it's looking better. Baby looks teeny weeny, but the swing was actually, this wreath was true to life. So had I put a baby in there, that's the proportions that we would have had. And I always like to look at proportions in digital backdrops because I like them to be realistic. And I was looking at those hydrangea heads, and roughly each head was the same size as a baby's head. So that kind of tells me that over here, that would be a realistic representation of what the baby would have looked like on a swing. Okay, so there you go. You've got the backdrop underneath is looking nice and blended. Now we've just got to sort out the baby and add, I think, a little bit of contrast there. So I have to say that the best action I used, and I have used for many years, is, look over here, subtle edit color base. It's absolutely brilliant. It's from Greater Than Gatsby, and I'll put a link underneath this video, but I'm going to run it right now and you can watch what happens to that little baba. It's quite a memory heavy action. It's good though. Okay, so can you see what happened? The baby's not only sharpened, but also contrast has been added and all sorts of things. The problem is it's also done into the swing. So before and after, before and after. We don't want that to be done to the swing. The swing is already contrasty enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually look on the bottom right where we got that layer. We're going to fill that with black. So basically what's happened is the result of the actions are now covered up, and we're just going to paint the action onto the baby. So what that's doing is increasing the contrast and making the baby look a little bit more like the swing. So look, before, after, before, after. For me, the action, the only things I would say about it is sometimes I will switch off the layer which sharpens, because I find the sharpening a little bit much. And also what I tend to do is not use it at full volume. So watch. Can you see? So I'll probably go about 70% here. Okay. Flatten the layers. Baby's in. Looks realistic. I mean, there could be a couple of other things that you could do. For example, I have this action called Warm It Up, Chris, where if I run it, again, look at the before and after. It's made the whole thing warmer. Again, you can change the opacity, so it's just subtle. Running an action at the end of an edit, what it will do, it will make it look a little bit more cohesive. Obviously, you might have your own style. Totally, you know, understand that everybody works differently, but you know, the actual final touches is what they're meant to be there, just to make the whole thing look a little bit more cohesive. So when you look at this baby, the lighting was coming from the right hand side. There's a shadow along the line of its back, which would match the notion if it had been in a swing. There would have been some shadow from the top. There's a shadow under the bottom. We've transferred the original shadows from the original shot underneath. So it's a nice, believable composite. And yeah, if you want to know more, you can always join the Facebook group. There's some free backdrops for you to practice on. But essentially, I hope really this helps you. This is my editing process and how I would do it. And if you have any questions, please let me know.